Shabbat Shalom Yasharala. Let me get the trumpet, the shofar, Numbers 10:10. Let's blow the trumpets on his solemn feast days, new moons, and Shabbats. Y'all ready, family? Let's do this. All right. All right. Before we begin, let us pray. Heavenly Abba, high in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Shabbat Shalom and happy feast of dedication to thou Abba for allowing us to be here in your presence. Please give us the Ruach Kodesh of understanding and discernment to learn and grow from this reading and protect us throughout this day, throughout this week, Abba, and guide us in all our being to do your will and your will alone. Bahashem Yasha. Amen and amen. Let's begin. In part 3 of the line by line reading of 2 Kings, we will be covering chapters 11 through 15 today. Let us begin. Chapter 11.
Second Kings 11. And when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. Then Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons which were slain. And they hid him, even him and his nurse, in the bedchamber from Athaliah, so that he was not slain. And he was with her hid in the house of the Lord 6 years. And Athaliah did reign over the land.
All right. And we see the parallel story in Second Chronicles. A lot of we're going to be reading a lot of Chronicles today, as we've been doing, but I would say a little bit more than the previous weeks. But the precept in Second Chronicles in 22, chapter 22, verse 10 through 12. Yeah, I guess I'll read all of it. But when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him in his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, Jehoram, the wife of the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she slew him not, and he was with them hid in the house of Elohim 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. So that was pretty much verbatim. I was just like, I guess I will read it though. But so Second Chronicles 22, 10 through 12, precept for verses 1 through 3 of chapter 11. And let me see, when do we'll bring this up later. We'll bring that up later. So verse 4, let's continue. So, oh yeah, I wanted to just do a quick update on where we left off. I don't know why it's looking a little fuzzy right now. Let's see, you know what? Let me just refresh it real quick. See if that helped. Yes, it did. All right, great. So we're in Judah right now. And that's another thing I want us to be tracking. Chapter 11 is all about the kings and queen of Judah. And I'm going to make sure we keep track of it because, like I said, we see that there's a lot of similar names here. So if we don't make sure we're aware of what we're reading, we could be bouncing back and forth mentally and lose our place on who we're talking about. So we're in the Kings of Judah with the very first and only queen after the death of Ahaziah. And this is where we're at. All right, verse 4.
And the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers over hundreds, with the captains and the guard, and brought them to him into the house of the Lord, and made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. And he commanded them, saying, This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you that enter in on the Sabbath shall even be keepers of the watch of the king's house, and a third part shall be at the gate of Sur, and a third part at the gate behind the guard. So shall ye keep the watch of the house, that it be not broken down.
And I just wanted to read that in the Septuagint. I just think the Septuagint reads a little bit clearer on this part. So let me see. So this is the priest of a priest during this time, very righteous priest. And verse 5, and he charged them, saying, This is the thing which ye shall do. Let a third part of you go in on the Sabbath day, and keep ye the watch of the king's house in the porch, and another third in the gate of the highway, and a third at the gate behind the footmen, and keep ye the guard of the house. And there shall be two parties among you, even every one that goes out on the Sabbath, and they shall keep the guard of the Lord's house before the king. So just read a little bit forward there, but just making it clear, what he's saying is we're preparing. The priest is preparing the kingdom to introduce the young king that is only 7 years old about at this time. And he's saying, okay, let's all be on the same page. Let's make sure we protect the king because, I mean, we read all throughout the kings that, people try to murder the royalty line and become king or queen all the time. And yes, Athaliah killed all the seed royal, meaning all the potential kings of Judah to become queen. Very, very evil deed. But that is what has transpired. And so they had to hide him. And I guess 7 years was just long enough for him to grow up just enough to be introduced as king for whichever reason. Not sure exactly why the age, but we know 7 is a, very important used number in scripture. All right, let's continue reading now.
And two parts of all you that go forth on the Sabbath, even they shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord about the king. And ye shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. And he that cometh within the ranges, let him be slain. And be ye with the king, as he goeth out, and as he cometh in. And the captains over the hundreds did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And they took every man his men, that were to come in on the Sabbath with them that should go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. And to the captains over hundreds did the priest give King David's spears and shields that were in the temple of the Lord. And the guard stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, round about the king, from the right corner of the temple to the left corner of the temple, along by the altar and the temple. And he brought forth the king's son, and put the crown upon him, and gave him the testimony, and then made him king, and anointed him. And they clapped their hands, and said, God save the king. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people into the temple of the Lord. And when she looked, behold, the king stood by a pillar, as the manner was, and the princes and the trumpeters by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and blew with trumpets. And Athaliah rent her clothes, and cried, Treason! Treason! But Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds, the officers of the host, and said unto them, Have her forth without the ranges, and him that followeth her kill with the sword. For the priest had said, Let her not be slain in the house of the Lord. And they laid hands on her, and she went by the way by the which the horses came into the king's house, and there was she slain.
Very straightforward stuff right here. And this is what I was saying. Jehoiada, the priest, he is, lack of better terms, the ringleader that is bringing all this about. He's the one preparing the troops to protect the king and to anoint and crown the king. And he's doing it all righteously. And by no coincidence, let's remember this, because we're going to see the king get crowned. And as we see here, Joash is a thumbs up. His direct father, Ahaziah, was wicked. But who was Joash raised under? He was raised under the righteous Jehoiada, the priest. So what I'm saying is, by no coincidence, he was brought up right, and so he became righteous, at least for the majority of his life. And this is going to be a testimony of who's your wise counsel in your life as we get to, the end of the life of Joash, the king of Judah. But we'll get there. Let me not get too far ahead now. I know, right? That's plenty of verses I could pull out of Proverbs, right? About raising a child righteously. And do not spare the rod from thy child. All right, verse 17. Let's finish chapter 11 here.
And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, between the king also and the people. And all the people of the land went into the house of Baal, and brake it down. His altars and his images brake they in pieces thoroughly, and slew Matan the priest of Baal before the altars, and the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. And he took the rulers of the hundreds, and the captains, and the guard, and all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guard to the king's house. And he sat on the throne of the kings. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was in quiet. And they slew Athaliah with the sword beside the king's house. 7 years old was Jehoash when he began to reign.
And there you have it. He was 7 years old, the youngest king to date. And so we are going to read 2 Chronicles 23 in its entirety. And this is this entire chapter is the precept or just a second witness to what we just read. And there is a couple of details that is not written in the Kings, which is why we're going to be reading it. That's only written in 2 Chronicles about this same exact time frame.
2 Chronicles 23. Then in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and made a covenant with the commanders of hundreds, with Azariah, son of Jeroham, Ishmael, son of Jehohanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Maaseiah, son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, son of Zichri. So they went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites from all the cities of Judah and the heads of the families of Israel. And when they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king in the house of God.
Oh, excuse me. That's not the end of verse 3.
Behold, the king's son, said Jehoiada. He must reign just as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David.
All right. So this right here, verse 3, brings us to the new moon games. Last new moon, we had this question. Ooh. Queen Blank is the only woman in the Bible reported as having reigned as a monarch, meaning a sole leader within Israel/Judah, either side. And now that we're reading it, I know you will never miss this question again because it was the least, Athaliah was the least selected choice from this question. So we all grow and we will not forget that Athaliah is the only queen to reign. And I say it during 2 Chronicles 23 verse 3 because it clearly tells us that we know that the seed of David through the man. Behold, the king's son, said Jehoiada. He must reign just as the Adon promised concerning the descendants of David. A queen shall not reign, but the son, the king, shall reign. And so that is exactly what this question was asking you. Which woman reigned on her own without a king? Because it was a very unrighteous thing to do, and that's why it only happened one time. But now we know. So I just had to like, pick with everyone that got this one wrong because we didn't go over it yet. Now we're going over it, and I know we will grow from it. All right, let's continue reading. Verse 4.
This is what you are to do. A third of you priests and Levites who come on duty on the Sabbath shall keep watch at the doors. A third shall be at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate, while all the others are in the courtyards of the house of the Lord. No one is to enter the house of the Lord except the priests and those Levites who serve. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the people are to obey the requirement of the Lord. The Levites must surround the king with weapons in hand, and anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. You must stay close to the king wherever he goes.
And this one's written a little bit different in the Second Chronicles, and we're reading from the Berean Standard Bible as well. But just another point of view of what they were trying to give us a mental image of what was happening and what he was trying to explain is, like I said, they are trying to make sure the king is protected during these times because he's only a boy. But they're like, it's time and we got to remove Athaliah from her royal throne. Verse 8.
So the Levites and all Judah did everything that Jehoiada the priest had ordered. Each of them took his men, those coming on duty on the Sabbath and those going off duty, for Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. Then Jehoiada the priest gave to the commanders of hundreds the spears and the large and small shields of King David that were in the house of God. He stationed all the troops with their weapons in hand, surrounding the king by the altar and the temple, from the south side to the north side of the temple. Then Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, presented him with the testimony, and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and cheering the king, she went out to them in the house of the Lord. And she looked out and saw the king standing by his pillar at the entrance. The officers and trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets, while the singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her clothes and screamed, "Treason! Treason!"
Treason, treason. When she's a murderer, a murderer. I'm telling you, the rules only applies to anybody when it works for them.
And Jehoiada the priest sent out the commanders of hundreds in charge of the army, saying, "Bring her out between the ranks, and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest had said, "She must not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they seized Athaliah as she reached the entrance of the horse gate to the palace grounds, and there they put her to death. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and the king and the people, that they would be the Lord's people. So all the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols to pieces, and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Moreover, Jehoiada put the oversight of the house of the Lord into the hands of the Levitical priests, whom David had appointed over the house of the Lord, to offer burnt offerings to the Lord, as is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and song, as ordained by David. He stationed gatekeepers at the gates of the house of the Lord, so that nothing unclean could enter for any reason. He also took with him the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land. And they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and entered the royal palace through the upper gate. They seated King Joash on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced. And the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been put to the sword.
So, I mean, we see some other details that's not in the book of Second Kings, such as the priest of Baal. We see that Athaliah, for the last 6 to 7 years, when she was queen of the land, has made Jerusalem and turned the temple of the Most High into the house of Baal. And they had to go and have a full purge throughout the land. All of her followers, the priest, and obviously the queen herself was put to death. In a very righteous manner, though. It all needed and was required to happen to cleanse the land from iniquity. Very, very righteous time at the moment for Judah. And you know what? I really don't like the audio reader for the Berean. we're gonna stick to the KJV and have that as a second witness there. All right, and that is chapter 11. So staying with it now, going back to the Kings. We have switch over here. I'm going to use this in a second. So start off this portion with Athaliah after the death of Ahaziah. And now we're on Joash. And even though here it looks like he doesn't reign long, but just for perspective, he does. He reigns for 40 years, we'll be looking at. But we also see on here that his name is yellow in this chart. And that means he's other. He didn't do right his whole life, and he wasn't evil his whole life, according to this chart, which pretty accurate. So let's continue reading to see why he's yellow on the chart, meaning he's not hot nor cold. It's kind of lukewarm. Chapter 12, still in the king of Judah, Jehoash or Joash. I think right here, yeah, it same person. I have no idea why they bounce back and forth with these names. It makes it harder to follow, but hey, we're just going to make sure we stay aware of what we're reading here. All right. All right. Chapter 12, verse 1.
2 Kings 12. In the 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash began to reign, and 40 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba.
Okay. Like I said, we're going to look at the chart here. The 7th year of Jehu, this is the king of Judah, and he reigned 40 years. So we already checked on that. But the 7th year, just at the chart, so we see Joash, and we see his timeline being connected at the time Jehu is king. Jehu, okay. All right. Verse 2.
And Jehoash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all his days, wherein Jehoiada the priest instructed him. But the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. And Jehoash said to the priests, all the money of the dedicated things that is brought into the house of the Lord, even the money of every one that passeth the account, the money that every man is set at, and all the money that cometh into any man's heart to bring into the house of the Lord, let the priests take it to them, every man of his acquaintance, and let them repair the breaches of the house, wheresoever any breach shall be found.
And we will read later in 2 Chronicles that he wants to repair the house of the Most High because Athaliah destroyed it in many ways.
But it was so that in the 23rd year of King Jehoash, the priests had not repaired the breaches of the house. Then,
so 23 years later, the priest still hasn't repaired the house of the Most High. Like, talking about just, I guess time just passing and no one taking accountability. It doesn't make it sound like people were stealing or being evil, but it just seemed like nobody was taking accountability to make sure that needed to happen.
King Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest and the other priests, and said unto them, why repair ye not the breaches of the house? Now therefore receive no more money of your acquaintance, but deliver it for the breaches of the house. And the priests consented to receive no more money of the people, neither to repair the breaches of the house. But Jehoiada the priest took a chest, and bored a hole in the lid of it, and set it beside the altar, on the right side as one cometh into the house of the Lord. And the priests that kept the door put therein all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. And it was so, when they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priest came up, and they put up in bags, and towed the money that was found in the house of the Lord. And they gave the money, being towed, into the hands of them that did the work, that had the oversight of the house of the Lord. And they laid it out to the carpenters and builders that wrought upon the house of the Lord, and to masons and hewers of stone, and to buy timber and hewed stone to repair the breaches of the house of the Lord, and for all that was laid out for the house to repair it. Howbeit, there were not made for the house of the Lord bowls of silver, snuffers, basins, trumpets, any vessels of gold or vessels of silver, of the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. But they gave that to the workmen, and repaired therewith the house of the Lord. Moreover, they reckoned not with the men, into whose hand they delivered the money to be bestowed on workmen, for they dealt faithfully. The trespass money and the sin money was not brought into the house of the Lord. It was the priests.
All right. So, in a nutshell, the first half of this chapter is just simply the king of Judah, Jehoash, wanting to clean up the temple, repair it, and get it up to par. And for the first 23 years, that didn't happen. So he took initiative, said, no one shall receive any extra money that isn't at least, as we read in verse 16, the money, the trespasses, sin money was not brought into the house. That was always for the priest. But all the others, money that is brought was put in a chest until they had enough to distribute it for whatever they needed. And before we continue from verse 16, oh yeah, I wanted to touch on verse 16, that has been from the beginning of Torah. In Numbers 3:51, and Moses gave the money of them that were redeemed. So this is an example of the when people redeem their firstborn, that money was involved in redeeming. And this was another circumstance that redemption money unto Aaron and to his sons according to the word. And we see in it also in this time that certain money and animals that people brought in for the services of the temple did go to the priest, but other money and contributions went into the chest to repair the house of the Most High, is what's being spoken here. So in other words, the priests are still getting taken care of, but anything outside of that, the temple, it was all for the temple, and at least the structure at this time in Jerusalem. And now we're going to the second witness of 2 Chronicles 24. We will be reading verses 1 through 22.
2 Chronicles 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And
key part there. That's the description here that I love. That he did right in the sight of the Most High all the days of Jehoiada the priest. But Jehoiada's days will end before the life of Joash. So let's continue reading with that in mind.
Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he begat sons and daughters. And it came to pass after this, that Joash was minded to repair the house of the Lord. And he gathered together the priest and the Levites, and said to them, Go out unto the cities of Judah, and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter. Howbeit, the Levites hastened it not. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection according to the commandment of Moses the servant of the Lord, and of the congregation of Israel for the tabernacle of witness? For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow upon Baalim.
And boom, there's your connection verse right there for why Joash is so determined, because Athaliah did some very wicked things to the house of the Most High. Verse 8.
And at the king's commandment they made a chest, and set it without at the gate of the house of the Lord. And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring into the Lord the collection that Moses the servant of God laid upon Israel in the wilderness.
All right, so let's find that. A collection that Moses laid out for Israel. And that's verse 9 here. Let me see. Exodus 36. This is when they are building up the tabernacle, which at their time you would call the temple of the Most High. And so the same way we're reading right now of King Joash is making collections to repair and build the temple, this is what they're referencing. The very first time where he was collecting people to hire to build the temple, same thing they're doing now, hiring wise builders in whom put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary according to all that the Most High commanded. And Most High called them and every wise-hearted man in whom the heart the Most High had put wisdom, even everyone whose heart stirred him up to come unto the work to do it. And they received of Moses all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary to make it withal. And they brought yet unto him free offerings every morning. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man for his work which they made. And they spoke unto Moses, saying, the people bring much more enough for a service of the work which the Most High commanded to make. Sounds very similar to what we just read, because that's exactly this is the rubric, this is the structure that Joash used to rebuild the temple, stated in 2 Chronicles. Verse 9, chapter 24, right? And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring into the Most High the collection that Moses, the servant of Elohim, laid upon Yasharallah in the wilderness. This is just as King Joash is looking into the word, seeking counsel on how to handle certain situations, same idea how we should use the word. If we have a situation that is close enough to a story in the book, let's try to mirror that. Obviously, if it's the example of a righteous action or work. All right, let's continue. Verse 10 here.
And all the princes and all the people rejoiced, and brought in and cast into the chest, until they had made an end. Now it came to pass, that at what time the chest was brought unto the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it, and carried it to his place again. Thus they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of the Lord. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of God in his state, and strengthened it. And when they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels for the house of the Lord, even vessels to minister, and to offer withal, and spoons, and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada.
All right. Verse 14, and when they had finished it, so separate from the money they were using initially to rebuild it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels of the house of the Most High. And we got to look back, because in 2 Kings chapter 12, verses 13, it says, howbeit, there were not made for the house of the Most High bowls, silver, etc., vessels of gold, vessels of silver, of that money that was brought into the house of the Most High. But they gave that to the workmen and repaired therewith the house of the Most High. And so I guess to make both of them make sense is that initially the money was to rebuild the house, but there obviously was extra funds that after they reestablished the temple, according to 2 Chronicles 24, that they did afterwards, after they finished it, that they did replace the vessels, or well, probably remove the old vessels of Baal and whatnot. That was just, whatever what was going on in those temples in those times. And they made new vessels of gold, silver, spoons, and etc. Verse 15.
But Jehoiada waxed old, and was full of days when he died. 130 years old was he when he died. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, both toward God and toward his house.
Shouts out to Jehoiada. Shout out to Jehoiada. Just want to stop. I didn't remember his name. I've read this book before and I didn't remember his name. And I just want to say he is one of the righteous priests of the kings, and he deserves to be remembered. So I just wanted to stop and say, let's remember the priest, the high priest of Jehoiada, for raising the young king and reestablishing Jerusalem because of his leadership. Because we will see just how important his leadership was, because immediately afterwards, we're going to read what happens to Jerusalem and King Joash. Verse 17.
Now after the death of Jehoiada came the princes of Judah, and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them, and they left the house of the Lord God of their fathers, and served the groves and idols, and wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their trespass. Yet he sent prophets to them, to bring them again unto the Lord, and they testified against them, but they would not give ear.
And let's not overlook verse 19. Yet he, who is he? The Most High. The Most High sent prophets to them to bring them again unto the Most High. The Most High is merciful. He doesn't just go, oh, you're sinning. I'm not going to send you a messenger. I'm not going to correct you. Every time we read from Solomon, king after king, especially a king that has fallen from righteousness, that he indeed send a messenger to give correction before you fall to total damnation. And we see it here, and he rejects their counsel. And this is why I was talking about earlier. He's yellow, which means he did right in his youth, and I would say his adult life, all the way up until the death of the king. Of the priest. And that's why it states, and Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Most High all the days of Jehoiada the priest. How important is it to have this righteous counsel amongst you? The moment that young, it said the young princes of Judah came, the moment he surrounded himself with these youngins that was like boasting him up, is when he started falling. All right, verse 20.
And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith God, Why transgress ye the commandments of the Lord, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken the Lord, he hath also forsaken you. And they conspired against him, and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, The Lord look upon it, and require it.
Madness. I know it does for everyone, but it just blows my mind how quickly people fall and forget. They forget the goodness of the Most High. They even forget the goodness of Jehoiada. That was a father-like figure, had to be a father-like figure to Joash. And he kills Jehoiada's son. There's no mercy. And you could just see how far Joash was once a righteous young king to just evilness. All right. Now we're back into 2 Kings chapter 12, finishing this chapter starting at verse 17 through 21.
Then Hazael, king of Syria, went up and fought against Gath and took it. And Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. And Jehoash, king of Judah, took all the hallowed things that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah his fathers, kings of Judah, had dedicated, and his own hallowed things, and all the gold that was found in the treasures of the house of the Lord and in the king's house, and sent it to Hazael, king of Syria. And he went away from Jerusalem. And the rest of the acts of Joash, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And his servants arose and made a conspiracy, and slew Joash in the house of Millo, which goeth down to Silla. For Josachar the son of Shemaeth, and Jehozabad the son of Shomer, his servants, smote him, and he died. And they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. And Amaziah his son reigned in his stead.
Verse 19 here. No, excuse me, verse 18. When Hazael, the king of Syria, came down Joash, the king of Judah, took all the hollow things that was in the treasures of the house of the Most High and gave it to the king Syria. Because, let me see, what happened is exactly what happened with Ahab. That reminds me of the story of Ahab in 1 Kings chapter 21 through 4. Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, gathered all his hosts together, and there were 32 kings with him and horses and chariots, and he went up and besieged Samaria and warred against it. And he sent messengers to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city and said unto him, Thus says Ben-Hadad, thy silver and thy gold is mine, thy wives also and thy children, even the goodliest are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, My lord, O king, according to thy saying, I am thine and all that I have. Something similar, the king of Syria came down, was against the house of Jerusalem, and we're going to read in 2 Chronicles that this happened after Joash became evil. This was sent by the Most High to take away all the gladness from the house of Judah that was while Joash was king. This we all know. This is how it works. When you are not for the Most High's kingdom, he won't give you glory to be parading as if you are a part of his kingdom. So let's read about that. Let's go to 2 Chronicles, and we're going to finish reading chapters 24, which is the verses 23 through 27 now. The time of Syria to the death of Joash.
And it came to pass at the end of the year that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus. But the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and the Lord delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Joash.
There you have it. The armies of the Syrians were sent by the Most High to deliver Judah in his hands, because they have forsaken the Most High of their fathers. So straightforward. Verse 25.
And when they were departed from him, for they left him in great diseases, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, but they buried him not in the sepulchres of the kings. And these are they that conspired against him: Zabad, the son of Shemaeth, an Ammonitis, and Jehozabad, the son of Shimrith, a Moabitess.
And I think that has some significant meaning as well. The Ammonites and the Moabites, even though, I mean, they killed him for a decent reason for slaying the sons of Jehoiada, the priests. I mean, decent reason, right? But these are two Gentile men. So it's low key disrespectful for a king of Judah to be slayed by two Gentiles. Verse 27.
Now concerning his sons, and the greatness of the burdens laid upon him, and the repairing of the house of God, behold, they are written in the story of the book of the kings. And Amaziah his son reigned in his stead.
All right, that was chapter 24. Second witness to 2 Kings chapter 12. All right, now we're moving on to chapter 13. Let's begin.
2 Kings 13. In the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 17 years.
Okay, let's go over. Now we're in the king of Israel. Keep your notes, because some of these names may be similar here, but chapters 11 and 12 was all about what was happening in Judah/Jerusalem. Now, chapter 13 is about what's happening in the northern kingdom, Samaria. All right. And so we're at the Jehoahaz right here. So let's go and just see what's up on the chart. So we see the son of Jehu, Jehoahaz, and he started during the reign of Joash. Right here, Joash. Okay. And also, I want to make note that we are at the beginning of the fulfillment of what the Most High has promised to Jehu in 2 Kings chapter 10:30, because thou hast done well in executing that which is right in my eyes, and has done unto the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart. Thy children of the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Yasharallah. And we are at the first generation. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we will see all of that happen right here in this chapter. So let's continue. Oops.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and followed the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into the hand of Hazael king of Syria, and into the hand of Benhadad the son of Hazael all their days. And Jehoahaz besought the Lord, and the Lord hearkened unto him, for he saw the oppression of Israel, because the king of Syria oppressed them. And the Lord gave Israel a savior, so that they went out from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as beforetime.
All right. This is just pure mercy answering Jehoahaz, an unrighteous king. But the Most High is merciful through the promise he gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And you see here, I think the Septuagint. So it says, the Most High gave Israel a savior, or in other terms, right here, another way to say it, the Most High gave deliverance to Israel. And the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as before time. So they was delivered and went back to dwell in their tents as before. Verse 6.
Nevertheless, they departed not from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who made Israel sin, but walked therein. And they remained at the grove also in Samaria. Neither did he leave of the people to Jehoahaz but 50 horsemen, and 10 chariots, and 10,000 footmen. For the king of Syria had destroyed them, and had made them like the dust by threshing. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz, and all that he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehoahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Joash his son reigned in his stead.
All right, we're about to go through all 4 of his generation sons in this chapter. So we already has completed the 17 years of Jehoahaz. Now we're at Jehoash in the second generation from Jehu. Verse 10.
In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, began Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 16 years.
In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah. So he reigned 16 years. Okay, 16 years. And then we come over here. His reign starts near the bottom of Joash's reign of Judah.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin, but he walked therein. And the rest of the acts of Joash, and all that he did, and his might wherewith he fought against Amaziah king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Joash slept with his fathers, and Jeroboam sat upon his throne, and Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel.
And we will read about the war between Israel and Judah next chapter, what they're referring to here. And Jeroboam. Now we're at the next king here. Jeroboam, wow, reigns 41 years, is now the 3rd generation from Jehu, excuse me. All right, and during this time frame, Elisha is still alive, but soon to pass away. Verse 14 now.
Now Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness whereof he died. And Joash the king of Israel came down unto him, and wept over his face, and said, O my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. And Elisha said unto him, Take bow and arrows. And he took unto him bow and arrows. And he said to the king of Israel, Put thine hand upon the bow. And he put his hand upon it. And Elisha put his hands upon the king's hands. And he said, Open the window eastward. And he opened it. Then Elisha said, Shoot. And he shot. And he said, The arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria. For thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek, till thou have consumed them. And he said, Take the arrows. And he took them. And he said unto the king of Israel, Smite upon the ground. And he smote thrice, and stayed. And the man of God was wroth with him, and said, Thou shouldst have smitten 5 or 6 times. Then hadst thou smitten Syria till thou hadst consumed it, whereas now thou shalt smite Syria but thrice.
Funny thing about this story is I don't know how the king was supposed to know he's supposed to smite more than 3 times, right? I looked into this passage. There's not much to it other than what is said. This is just was the mysterious works of the kingdom through the prophet of Elisha, and this is just what happened. The arrow is the arrow of victory, and he says smites the arrows to the ground. He does it 3 times, which will mean that there will be 3 victories in these days over Syria to give Israel, obviously victory and freedom from all of what is plaguing them from the Syrians right now. Verse 20.
And Elisha died, and they buried him. And the bands of the Moabites invaded the land at the coming in of the year.
I also just wanted to point out, it says at the coming in of the year, the beginning of the year. And the Septuagint makes it clear, when do we start the year? Oh, right here. It says, in the bands of the Moabites. So this is when it says the bands of the Moabites, they're like a gang, a gang of Moabites. And this right here, at the beginning of the year, where does it say? Am I mistaken? Somewhere said it was spring. Where was it? Verse 20. Oh, the Berean. Excuse me. It was actually the Berean translation. Used to come into the land every spring. Literally into the land at the coming of the year. That's where it was. All right. So yes, the Moabites would invade the land in bands or gangs at the beginning of the year. Verse 21.
And it came to pass, as they were burying a man, that, behold, they spied a band of men, and they cast the man into the sepulchre of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet.
And this reminds me of Ezekiel 37, of the bones coming to life. I think this is the foreshadowing of it, honestly. Thus says the Most High unto these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live. And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live. And ye shall know that I am Hayah. So I will prophesy as I was commanded, and I prophesied. There was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. And we know that Elisha had double a portion of the spirit of Elijah upon him. So, very, very righteous body to touch. In verse 22 now.
But Hazael, king of Syria, oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. And the Lord was gracious unto them, and had compassion on them, and had respect unto them, because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not destroy them, neither cast he them from his presence as yet. So Hazael, king of Syria, died, and Ben-Hadad his son reigned in his stead. And Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, took again out of the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz his father by war. 3 times did Joash beat him, and recovered the cities of Israel.
And this is back and forth, slowly but surely. The northern kingdom is going to start losing their land because they just will not return to the covenant, and they keep forsaking the Most High. And we know eventually it's going to be gone entirely to the Assyrians, right? And we're getting very close. If we look at this chart here, look how many kings are left. Getting very close to the end of the reign of the northern kingdom. And that is good. The conclusion of chapter 13. And so this was all Israel. That's why I was saying all Israel. We got through 3 of the generations from Jehu with only 1 remaining, and that 1 is only going to last 6 months. Very brief. Let's continue to chapter 14. Amaziah. This is back at Judah. So let's make a note. We're back right here, the son of Joash. We're back in the kings of Judah now. All right. Amaziah reigns in Judah. Chapter
2 Kings 14. In the 2nd year of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, reigned Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoadan of Jerusalem.
Okay, just want to go back to this chart. And you will see why we do these things as we go on. We want to just make sure we're understanding the timeline, who is involved with who. All of these things matter because we see these kings go to war, and we want to make sure we're understanding the structure and timeline of the history. So we see in the 2nd year of Joash, right here, and we see at the top of Joash's reign, Amaziah. And once again, unfortunately, like his father, we have not a full righteous life coming up. Spoiler alert.
And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, yet not like David his father. He did according to all things as Joash his father did. Howbeit, the high places were not taken away. As yet the people did sacrifice, and burnt incense on the high places. And it came to pass, as soon as the kingdom was confirmed in his hand, that he slew his servants which had slain the king his father. But the children of the murderers he slew not, according unto that which is written in the book of the law of Moses, wherein the Lord commanded, saying, The fathers shall not be put to death for the children, nor the children be put to death for the fathers, but every man shall be put to death for his own sin.
All right, so he slew that Ammonitis and Moabitis men that were the servants of Joash the king. But he did slew their children due to verse 6 here, which he is quoting Deuteronomy 24:16. The fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. And I also, before we continue for verses 1 through 6 of chapter 14, we are going to read 2 Chronicles chapter 25, verses 1 through 4. Going to do this quite often in this chapter. Going to try to size it up at the same time in 2 Kings with 2 Chronicles.
2 Chronicles 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoadan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father. But he slew not their children, but did, as it is written in the law of the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, saying, The fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and made them captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin, and he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel, for 100 talents of silver.
Oh, excuse me. Don't put verse 6 yet. My bad. I went too far. I went too far. Excuse me. It was just supposed to be verses 1 through 4 in Second Chronicles.
Judah and Benjamin, and he numbered.
Let's go back a little bit.
Fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin.
Okay, let's stop there. So, Second Chronicles 25, 1 through 4, we just read verses 1 through 4. That goes with the first 6 verses of chapter 14 that we read. I was reading a little bit too far ahead now. And so now, this is where Chronicles comes in clutch. We're about to read just one verse here in chapter 14, and the rest of it is expounded in Second Chronicles. So I'm going to read this one verse.
He slew of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000, and took Selah by war, and called the name of it Joktheel unto this day.
Okay, so the rest of all of this story of the war with Edom and whatnot is in Second Chronicles, which is now what we're going to read. Verse 5. Now we're going to read verses 5 through 16. And that's why this is my first time doing this much references to Chronicles as I'm reading Kings. And there's so much details that's in the book of First and Second Chronicles that helps with the understanding of Kings. You do yourself a disservice for just reading Kings by itself, because we're going to get all of this from just one verse, verse 7 of chapter 14 here. So verse 5 through 16 now.
Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and made them captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel, for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Israel go with thee, for the Lord is not with Israel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if thou wilt go, do it, be strong for the battle. God shall make thee fall before the enemy, for God hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? And the man of God answered, The Lord is able to give thee much more than this.
Listen, Yasharallah. I love this little story here. They already spent that money. That money gone. They already hired the help. In the righteous man, prophet, whichever who this is saying that the Most High can do much more. I'm just going to insert this message. Know when to take a loss. Know when to just take your L. It happens in life where you overextend yourself. You invest in something that is not of the kingdom, that isn't working. You feel it in your ruach, it ain't right. But you're like, man, I already paid for it. It's okay. It's okay. Abba is testing you. Whether you will say, Abba is bigger than this little bit of money. Abba's bigger than this situation. Or you're going to go, nah, man, forget that. They're going to come and do this because I paid them. Listen, these are not just stories. These are lessons. Let's finish this lesson real quick here.
Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. And Amaziah strengthened himself, and led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote of the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they all were broken in pieces. But the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah, from Samaria even unto Beth-horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Now it came to pass after that, Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. Wherefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Amaziah, and he sent unto him a prophet, which said unto him, Why hast thou sought after the gods of the people, which could not deliver their own people out of thine hand? And it came to pass, as he talked with him, that the king said unto him, Art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear. Why shouldst thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare, and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel.
All right, man. And this is why we see Amaziah is yellow. Did right, but then does evil. Amaziah takes the counsel of the righteous man, saying, we do not need the help of Israel because the Most High is not with them, just for him to win the battle without them, but brings home their idols. Make it make sense. We can never understand how people fall. It looks different from our perspective. We're just reading it, but man, it's so tough to digest reading it at times, of how easily people fall into iniquity and idolatry. All right. And so as we see, all of that was in all of that story we read in 2 Chronicles 25, verses 5 through 16 was summarized in one verse here, when he went to Edom and slew them. And so this is where we're at now, and this is why the idols of Amaziah is why all of a sudden things change and he becomes weak, because the Most High is no longer on his side because of his idols that he refuses to repent of. So now we're back in 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 8. Like I said, we have a lot of back and forth. Stay with me. Take your notes. Let's read.
Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, Come, let us look one another in the face. And Jehoash, the king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trod down the thistle.
Okay, guys, this was a riddle type parable that the king of Israel, Jehoash, sent to Amaziah, the king of Judah. So understand, it's not written in here, it's written in 2 Chronicles. Understand why Amaziah is sent on to the king of Israel. It's because in 2 Chronicles 25, verse 13, but the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back. Who did he send back? The Israel soldiers. And remember, they were wroth. They were angry that they were sent back. Upon them going back, they fell upon the cities of Judah and smote 3,000 that was of Judah, and took much spoil. And so now Amaziah is now upset with Israel for doing this, which just making this come full circle on why he sent a messenger, and this was not a good message. And that's why the king of Israel, Jehoash, gives him this parable of sorts. The thistle was in Lebanon, sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon. So, from my understanding, the thistle he is referring to the thistle, something small, as Judah, in that he's saying the cedar, something big, is him, Israel, that was in Lebanon, saying, give thy daughter to my son to wife, like submission of sorts. And there passed a wild beast that was in Lebanon and trod down the thistle. So, simplifying the parable is he's saying, know your place, Judah, because we are the cedar, and you're just a thistle that can be trodden down. Simply put. So, verse 10. So, in other words, things are getting hostile between the two kingdoms. Verse 10.
Thou hast indeed smitten Edom, and thine heart hath lifted thee up. Glory of this, and tarry at home. For why shouldst thou meddle to thy hurt, that thou shouldst fall, even thou, and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear. Therefore Jehoash, king of Israel, went up, and he and Amaziah, king of Judah, looked one another in the face at Beth-shemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worse before Israel, and they fled every man to their tents.
Oh, yes, and this is the reference. Oops. Of what I said in 2 Kings 13:12, when it says the acts of Joash and all that he did, and his might wherewith he fought against Amaziah, king of Judah. This is what we're reading about right now. And so that being said, we're going to read a little bit more, and then we're going to read the second witness in 2 Chronicles. We're going to read through verse 15 and then go back to 2 Chronicles. So let's continue here. Verse 12.
And Jehoash, king of Israel, took Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Jehoash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth-shemesh, and came to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim unto the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and silver, and all the vessels that were found in the house of the Lord, and in the treasures of the king's house, and hostages, and returned to Samaria. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoash, which he did, and his might, and how he fought with Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehoash slept with his fathers, and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. And Jeroboam his son reigned in his stead.
Okay, so let's read about this in 2 Chronicles 25. We will read verse 17 to 24.
Then Amaziah, king of Judah, took advice, and sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, Come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash, king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trod down the thistle. Thou sayest, Lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldst thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldst fall, even thou, and Judah with thee?
This is what you would be called talking smack in our time.
But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom.
You see that? You don't get the full understanding of this whole matter without 2 Chronicles 25. It should be required to read this chapter with chapter 14 of 2 Kings. This is why all of this happened this way. So they will fall to the king of Israel because of the idols of Edom. Verse 21.
So Joash, the king of Israel, went up, and they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziah, king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worse before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash, the king of Israel, took Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and silver and all the vessels that were found in the house of God with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria.
So y'all see what the Most High did? The Most High took everything that they just took and captured, from the people to the silver, the gold, the vessels. They all was taken away from them because of the idols that they brought from Edom. The Most High giveth, and the Most High taketh. We'll stop there at verse 24 for now. All right. Now we're reading in chapter 14 of 2 Kings, we're going to read verses 17 through 20.
And Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. And the rest of the acts of Amaziah, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Now they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent after him to Lachish, and slew him there. And they brought him on horses, and he was buried at Jerusalem with his fathers in the city of David. And all
I'm going to go ahead and read 21 and 22 here.
people of Judah took Azariah, which was 16 years old, and made him king instead of his father Amaziah. He built Elath and restored it to Judah. After that, the king slept with his fathers.
Okay, so let's go to Chronicles first, and we will be finishing the chapters 25, verses 25 through 28.
And Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now after the time that Amaziah did turn away from following the Lord, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent to Lachish after him, and slew him there. And they brought him upon horses, and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah.
Okay, so let's just go back to the chart. So we see that Amaziah, even though he lost that battle, he did not die. He lived after Joash into the next reign of Jeroboam. And yes, the next one was, let me see. Yes. Azariah was 16-year-old, and he made him king instead of his father. So Uzziah or Azariah, another king with two names that we will see. I think Uzziah is what the Second Chronicles use, and Azariah is what Second Kings use. But he will be king through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Israelite kings. Wow. So that's what I'm saying. This reign is pretty much almost all the rest of Israel. And I mean, it's for 52 years. So, and we have a lot of short kings here at the end of close to the end of the time of the Northern Kingdom. But let me see here now. All right, so where we at? Yes, we read verses 21 and 22, and that leads us to chapters 26 now, and I'm just going to read verse 1 and 2 just to stay in line with it.
2 Chronicles 26. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father Amaziah. He built Eloth and restored it to Judah. After that, the king slept with his fathers.
All right, so we're at verse 3. We will come back in the next chapter here. All right, a lot of notes. I know it. That's why this is recorded. You can always watch it later and take your time with it. All right, let's finish off 2 Kings 14 now.
In the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, began to reign in Samaria, and reigned 41 years.
Okay, so we've been keeping track on what kingdom we're at, right? Chapter 11 was Judah. Chapter 12 was Judah. Chapter 13 was Israel. Chapter 14, verses 1 through 22 was all Judah. Now we're about to be from verses 23 through 29 is Israel. I make these notes because they help me just know exactly what's going on. Without thinking twice. All right. And as we saw also, I like to just do my timeline comparison. We see in the 15th year, Amaziah, the king of Judah, Jeroboam reigned. And here we have, right here, at the beginning of his reign in the midst of Amaziah. All right, let's continue now. Verse 24.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. He restored the coast of Israel from the entering of Hamath unto the sea of the plain, according to the word of the Lord God of Israel, which he spake by the hand of his servant Jonah the son of Amittai the prophet, which was of Gath-hepher.
All right, so we have a shout out to Jonah. And just to prove this is the same Jonah, let's compare. Oops, over here. Jonah 1:1 tells us Jonah, the son of Amittai. And we see here Jonah, the son of Amittai. All right. And it says, now I'm going to let it read verse 26 to 27 now for the other verse in Jonah.
For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, that it was very bitter, for there was not any shut up, nor any left, nor any helper for Israel. And the Lord said not that he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam the son of Joash.
All right. And so in verse 25, he says, he restored the coast of Israel from entering Hamath unto the sea of the plain, according to the word of the Most High of Israel, which he spoke by the hand of his servant Jonah. And I couldn't find verbatim this prophecy from Jonah in the book of Jonah, but I did find the story, right? In Jonah chapter 2, I'm going to read verse 1 through 3 and then verse 10. And Jonah prayed unto the Most High as Elohim out of the fish's belly and said, I cried by reason of my affliction unto the Most High, and he heard me out of the belly of Hail, cried I, and thou heardest my voice, for thou hadst cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about, and all thy billows and thy waves passed over me. This is all about the marine kingdom. Everything about him being submerged in water and in the midst of the seas and the floods is that he is immersed in the world. And the world, he for forsaking the Most High, he has been immersed in the world, in the darkness of it, that is the seas. Verse 10, and the Most High spoke unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. And so the testimony of Jonah, I didn't see verbatim a prophecy from Jonah, but the testimony of Jonah does reflect the house of Israel. Those that are in the belly of the fish, submerged in the sea in darkness, but the Most High delivers them from the fish. And this is what's happening. He has not forsaken his people, even though he will allow them to fall into captivity to pay for the price of their transgressions soon enough here. All right. Let's finish chapters 14, verse 28 now.
Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam and all that he did in his might, how he warred, and how he recovered Damascus and Hamath, which belonged to Judah, for Israel, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jeroboam slept with his fathers, even with the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned in his stead.
All right, the next king, Zechariah. And Zechariah's king reign will be very, very short. And this is the last seed promised to Jehu, but we will get a reminder of that in chapters 15, which will be the last chapter of our reading today.
Second Kings 15. In the 27th year of Jeroboam king of Israel, began Azariah son of Amaziah king of Judah to reign. 16 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jechaliah of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done, save that the high places were not removed. The people sacrificed and burnt incense still on the high places. And the Lord smote the king, so that he was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a several house. And Jotham, the king's son, was over the house, judging the people of the land. And the rest of the acts of Azariah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Jotham his son reigned in his stead.
Man, so just reading in 2 Kings, you might be at times baffled or confused. Azariah, it says that he started in the 27th year of Jeroboam. So let's just fact check that. Well, not fact check it, but just look at it on the chart. So we see right there, Azariah or Uzziah during Jeroboam's reign. And continuing here, we read that he did that which was right in the sight of the Most High. So why just a little bit later, 2 verses later, from verse 3, he did right. Verse 5, the Most High smote the king so that he was a leopard all the day until his death. And this is why I've been saying, man, Second Chronicles is very important, or First Chronicles, depending on where you're reading at in the Kings, right? Or the Book of Samuel's. But without reading Second Chronicles chapter 26, you just don't understand what's going on. Why was he plagued? Because the why is there, which what we're about to go to right now. We will be reading Second Chronicles chapter 26, 3 through 23. And this will give understanding for the reign of Azariah, the king of Judah. So verses 1 through 7 of 2 Kings 15 will be mashed up with 2 Chronicles 26, verse 3 through 23. So let us read that now.
16 years old was Uzziah when he
And remember, Uzziah is Azariah. Do not be confused. Same king of Judah.
began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Jechaliah of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah did. And he sought God in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding in the visions of God. And as long as he sought the Lord, God made him to prosper.
Wow. So this king was a righteous king that also had understanding and received visions of the Most High. And it says in the days of Zechariah, this is not referring to the prophet Zechariah. This is referring to Zechariah, the king of Israel. Just clarifying. Oh. Verse 6.
And he went forth and warred against the Philistines, and brake down the wall of Gath, and the wall of Jabneh, and the wall of Ashdod, and built cities about Ashdod, and among the Philistines. And God helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians that dwelt in Gerbal, and the Mehunims. And the Ammonites gave gifts to Uzziah, and his name spread abroad even to the entering in of Egypt, for he strengthened himself exceedingly. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, and at the turning of the wall, and fortified them. Also he built towers in the desert, and digged many wells, for he had much cattle, both in the low country and in the plains, husbandmen also, and vine dressers in the mountains and in Carmel, for he loved husbandry. Moreover, Uzziah had an host of fighting men that went out to war by bands, according to the number of their account by the hand of Jeiel the scribe, and Maaseiah the ruler, under the hand of Hananiah, one of the king's captains. The whole number of the chief of the fathers of the mighty men of valor were 2,600. And under their hand was an army, 300,000 and 7,500, that made war with mighty power to help the king against the enemy. And Uzziah prepared for them throughout all the host shields, and spears, and helmets, and habergeons, and bows, and slings to cast stones. And he made in Jerusalem engines, invented by cunning men, to be on the towers, and upon the bulwarks, to shoot arrows and great stones withal. And his name spread far abroad, for he was marvelously helped, till he was strong. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction.
Now, here is the time frame of the leprosy, putting the whole story of the first 7 verses of King Azariah of Judah. So yes, now we're at what, verse 5.
For he transgressed against the Lord his God, and went into the temple of the Lord to burn incense upon the altar of incense. And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests of the Lord that were valiant men. And they withstood Uzziah the king, and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto the Lord, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor from the Lord God. Then Uzziah was wroth, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priests in the house of the Lord, from beside the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead. And they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hasted also to go out, because the Lord had smitten him. And Uzziah the king was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a several house, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of the Lord. And Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, first and last, did Isaiah the prophet the son of Amoz write. So Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of the burial which belonged to the kings, for they said, He is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his stead.
Wow. Uzziah or Azariah, which I think now I realize they call him Uzziah in the Second Chronicles, maybe because there was another Azariah at the time that was the chief priest. And so maybe they were using his nickname, Uzziah, to differentiate the two. Just throwing it out there. But yes, we see that he was such a powerful, righteous king at one point that he thought he could just do what he wanted. He's like, you know what? I could be a priest. I could go and do what priests do. They're not special, or that rule doesn't matter. Sounds like what we do a lot of times in this life. Totally different, modernized positions, but man, you start thinking highly of yourself and start saying, you know, it doesn't really matter if the Bible gives me permission or not. I know what I can do. I'm special. I'm smart. I'm wise. Check your ego, Yasharala. Check your ego. And one last connection here. They mentioned Isaiah during this time frame, verse 22 here. And we see Isaiah confirming this. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah and these other kings. Let's look at that real quick. So the days of Isaiah the prophet starts here from Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz to Hezekiah. And was that it? And yep, those are the four kings of the time of Isaiah the prophet mentioned in verse 22 of chapter 26 of 2nd Chronicles. All right. And so been keeping tabs. So on the kingdom we're on, so now chapters 15, just verses 1 through 7 is Judah. The rest of the chapter will be Israel's kings, and they go through them pretty swiftly. Pretty swiftly. We got every king, every like 4 to 5 verses, starting with Zechariah here. We're going to go through these 5 kings all in this chapter. And then we do finish with the king of Judah, but let's begin. Verse 8.
In the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah, did Zechariah the son of Jeroboam reign over Israel in Samaria 6 months. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, as his fathers had done. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Shallum the son of Jabesh conspired against him, and smote him before the people, and slew him, and reigned in his stead. And the rest of the acts of Zechariah, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. This was the word of the Lord, which he spake unto Jehu, saying, Thy sons shall sit on the throne of Israel unto the fourth generation. And so it came to pass.
There we have it. The completion of, and that's why I like this one, has a color coordinated, letting us know the dynasties of these kings. And we have like a greenish color for Jehu. So it's Jehu +4 to completion of that promise / prophecy. And so now we have for 1 month, Shalom reigns. And oh yes, real quick, it says that Zechariah reigned in the 38th year of Azariah. So during the same time, we'll see all of these being at the same time of Azariah, as read in Isaiah 1:1. All right, so now the second king of Israel, for this chapter at least, verse 13.
Shalom, the son of Jabesh, began to reign in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah. And he reigned a full month in Samaria. For Menahem, the son of Gadai, went up from Tirzah, and came to Samaria, and smote Shalom, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria, and slew him, and reigned in his stead. And the rest of the acts of Shalom, and his conspiracy which he made, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Then Menahem smote Tiphsah, and all that were therein, and the coasts thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him. Therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child he ripped up.
Man, very vicious time for the Israelites. And so we see here, Shalom reigned during the time of Uzziah or Azariah in the 39th year. We just see that. All right, Menahem, the next king. And let's see, how long do we have him? 10 years, which we're sure we're about to read. All right, the next king of Israel, verse 17.
In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadai, to reign over Israel, and reigned 10 years in Samaria. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. And Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand.
Same thing that we read earlier with Joash, king of Israel, or Jehoash, I should say. Empty the bank for the king of Syria.
And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back, and stayed not there in the land. And the rest of the acts of Menahem, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his stead.
All right. So nothing new. We know Azariah's king during all of these reigns, and Pekahiah comes next, son of Menahem. Verse 23.
In the 50th year of Azariah king of Judah, Pekah the son of Menahem began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 2 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. But Pekah the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him, and smote him in Samaria in the palace of the king's house, with Argob and Arieh, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites. And he killed him, and reigned in his room. And the rest of the acts of Pekahiah, and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah king of Judah, Pekah the son of Remaliah began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years.
All right. So we see, well, just to confirm, and going down the timelines, Pekahiah reigned 2 years during the king. At the end, it says the 50th year Azariah, and we know Azariah reigned 52. So this nearing the end of Azariah's reign, but Pekahiah during that time. And then now we just read verse 27, and the 52 year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah reigned, as we see here at the very end of Azariah. All right, verse 28.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah king of Israel came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ion, and Abel-Beth-Maachah, and Genoa, and Kadesh, and Hazor, and Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. And Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah the son of Remaliah, and smote him, and slew him, and reigned in his stead, in the 20th year of Jotham the son of Uzziah. And the rest of the acts of Pekah, and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel.
All right, so disclaimer, I'm going to show an image for verse 29 just to give an idea of how much of the kingdom's taken away, but I am not confirming at all, or I'm actually denying that the image of this land is the actual real Jerusalem or Israel, promised land, whichever you want to call it. But this is just for an idea of how much of the land has been taken. And so this is back in the at the beginning of the Kings, somewhat beginning of the Kings, with King David's time, and 2 Samuel, an idea of what the kingdom looked like. And then now, just to put in comparison here, we see the Sea of Galilee, how all of this is Israel, but now this is an idea of the land seized by Assyria. And now it's below the Sea of Galilee, taking up all of this land. So roughly all of this, like about the top half of Israel has been seized by Assyria. During the time of who? Pekah, king of Israel. All right. And also I wanted to point out, we've been going down the timeline, and in verse 30, it says at the time that the next and last king came to kill Pekah, it says that in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, that this happens. And so we see here, let me show you this. It says that in the 20th year of Jotham, the king of Judah after Uzziah. But on this timeline, we see that the end of his reign is not during Jotham's. It is Ahaz. Okay, and I will confirm this in chapter 16, or it could be this chapter. We'll have to see in 2 Chronicles, but we see that Pekah, even though it says that he was slain in the 20th year of Jotham, we see that Jotham doesn't even reign 20 years. So in other words, I'm pointing out, for whatever reason, I looked into it, it's just an incorrection. It's just a typo. Jotham doesn't even reign 20 years, and he's still alive during the time of Ahaz, because we will read that he goes to battle with king of Judah, which is Ahaz, which is after Jotham. So don't really have much more to say, just pointing out that the verse 30 in chapters 15 of 2 Kings, the time frame that he was smote and slew him during the reign of Jotham in the 20th year, maybe it's the 20th year of Pekah, I guess, but it still doesn't make sense, because we will read that Pekah is not dead during the reign of Ahaz. So just putting that out there. That's just something I found, but that's what I do. Whatever I find, I'm just going to be showing you what I find, right? So that's just the one inconsistency. Not a big deal, but it is what it is. All right. Now we're back in Judah. We just saw Jotham is next for the last few verses, verse 32 through 38 of chapter 15. So let's read.
In the 2nd year of Pekah the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign.
As we see here.
25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He did according to all that his father Uzziah had done. Howbeit, the high places were not removed. The people sacrificed and burned incense still in the high places. He built the higher gate of the house of the Lord. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In those days, the Lord began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah the son of Remaliah. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father. And Ahaz, his son, reigned in his stead.
All right, we are going to finish off this week's reading with our second witness for Jotham's reign in 2 Chronicles chapter 27, verses 1 through 9.
2 Chronicles 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Uzziah did. Howbeit he entered not into the temple of the Lord, and the people did yet corruptly. He built the high gate of the house of the Lord, and on the wall of Ophel he built much. Moreover, he built cities in the mountains of Judah, and in the forests he built castles and towers. He fought also with the king of the Ammonites, and prevailed against them. And the children of Ammon gave him the same year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 measures of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. So much did the children of Ammon pay unto him, both the second year and the third. So Jotham became mighty because he prepared his ways before the Lord his God. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars and his ways, lo, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Ahaz, his son, reigned in his stead.
All right. And that is the conclusion. And real quick, let me see if Pekah's in the next chapter just to finish what I was saying. Yes. Let me see. And there we go. Just to point out the inconsistency that's I was saying from last chapter. It says, Pekah, the king of Israel, they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. And that was my point, is Pekah is mentioned still alive in the time of Ahaz, so he couldn't have been slew for the time of Jotham, if you understand the order. Can't be slew during this man's time if he's warring against Ahaz, king of Judah. But we will talk more about that next week. Just wanted to finish that understanding for y'all. And this is the conclusion of 2 Kings, chapter 11 through 15, part 3. Tudah for joining me, and Shabbat Shalom Yasharallah once again.